Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. I'm Traci Chernoff, and I've spent my entire professional career in HR. Each week, we'll explore the delicate balance between people and business with the aim to reconnect the two and create meaningful outcomes. Listen in as I share my own experiences, challenge the status quo, and chat with guests from various industries about our mission to bring the human back to human resources. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another week. This week, I have Jason P. Carroll on as our guest, and we're going to talk a lot about strategy in this episode. So buckle up, get ready, because this is some of my favorite stuff to talk about. So let me introduce you to Jason. He is a leadership strategist and trusted advisor to businesses navigating growth and change. He's the founder and CEO of Aptive Index, a company revolutionizing hiring and leadership practices with advanced psychometric assessments and strategic advisory services. Jason has guided leaders and organizations to achieve transformative results, including scaling champion national security from $24 million to $80 million. A certified executive coach and dare to lead facilitator trained by the Dr. Brene Brown.
She's amazing.
Amazing. Jason is deeply committed to personal development and building inclusive, high-performing organizations. His work reflects a people-first approach, integrating innovative tools and compassionate leadership to align talent with organizational goals. Guided by core values of courage and generosity, Jason's vision is to empower leaders to create workplaces where collaboration and resilience thrive, aka my favorite kind of person to talk to. So Jason, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And note to self, I will tell my PR company to have a shorter bio for things like this. Thank you for that mouthful.
Oh my gosh, of course. You know, I think it's great when someone can hear all of the accolades and achievements that they've had. So I can totally appreciate, since you're also a podcaster, that you're like, okay, that's a bio that you've got to read.
That was a lot. Yeah.
But there's a lot of credibility that's built in that type of bio. So I think the listeners hopefully will appreciate it. And so cool, the Dr. Brene Brown connection. That must have been amazing.
It was. I think the standout, so I guess this was June of 2019, got to meet her, be trained by her. It's like a week-long deal. And the standout was, well, one, people from all over the world. I mean, literally all over every continent. Well, maybe not Antarctica, but of the 120 people there, I was one of 8 dudes.
Oh my gosh, you're joking.
Oh, no. 8 guys out of 120 people. It was crazy.
That's a very small percentage.
Yep.
Did you create like an employee resource group or a trainee resource group out of the 8 of you? Like, did you band together? No,
not at all. No, there was one other person though from Austin, which was amazing. So she and I connected. We ended up doing a big public Brene like workshop here in Austin, and sold out on Eventbrite within days of putting it up. And we were like, I guess we don't even have to advertise this. That's amazing.
How amazing. It's fabulous. I mean, Dr. Brene Brown is world renowned for a reason. She really does some amazing things. Fabulous.
Agreed,
well, we're really excited to have you on the podcast. And I know from having been able to take your Aptive Index test assessment, that it's really well-rounded. And so I guess before we even talk about what you've built, I'd love to hear a little bit about why you built the Aptive Index and what kind of drove you to really want to use assessments as a way to fuel strategy within businesses.
Yeah, so at Champion, which you mentioned in the bio, it was a rapid growth. You know, the company was already 33 years old when I joined, and then we tripled in size over 7 years. And so hiring kind of became the bane of my existence for a while. I had to shuffle around the executive leadership team. I got to turn over a misogynistic boys club in the senior leadership team. That was fun.
So fun.
But just had to hire a lot of people. And I learned 2 major things about hiring. 1, hiring sucks. And 2, I suck at hiring. I'm just so bad at it. But as I started like poking around my own network, I realized, okay, pretty much everyone agrees. There's like maybe a 5% of people that think they're great at hiring, and they're probably lying to themselves.
Mm.
And so it was like, okay, well, why is that the case? And really, you think about this whole process. We post some job on Indeed. We're looking at what? A resume. So that's the primary lever we're looking at, and it's trying to tell us skills and experience. And so the problem is they're all getting filtered through ATSs, and that was always a problem. And now it's even worse because every resume is written by AI. It's ChatGPT.
Mm.
And even beyond that, I made a top 10 list of things that I'm looking for in a good hire. And skills and experience is important, but it wasn't even top 10. It was number 11. And so I'm sitting there going, all of this quote unquote data that we're looking at is A, subjective, it's unreliable, it's an antiquated system. And at the end of the day, it's not even remotely the most helpful thing. And so that part was broken. And then we bring people in interviews. We tend to hire who we like, but who we like is not always good for the job.
Right.
And so, yeah, the whole thing was just broken. I love data and I love science, and I just needed some sort of objective data and discovered psychometrics. Uh, I use some tools that are out there on the market. They are good, but they weren't great, but it was still something. And in that process, really fell in love with the idea of looking at people through the lens of objective data as one leg of the stool. It's not the only thing. We don't just toss people out because of some assessment result. But it was a new data point that gave us real deep insight into kind of how people move through the world and how they're wired, and allowed us to predict who was going to be most successful and who might struggle and why.
Right. No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the best use cases for an assessment tool that really measures the way that people work or what their natural tendencies are is really to see how people will work collaboratively as a team. At least in my experience, like
Mhm.
having access not only to my own results, but to my team or colleagues' results has enabled better, not necessarily more collaboration, but more effective collaboration. Because
Yeah.
if you know that someone is like really good at strategy, then you're going to take them as a partner to really think through all of those like 5 steps ahead types of considerations. That's like something that I've always had as a strength within like these assessments that I've used, including and the Aptive Index is obviously discussed in a different way in your assessment. But that's where it's like, okay, if I know my own strengths, if know my own natural tendencies, then I'm able to support others better. And then again, like if a coworker of mine is really analytical, and that's something that maybe I'm not so great at because I move a million miles a minute and I'm not
Yes, you do.
slowing down to really analyze. Exactly. I do. I do 1,000%. Then it's like, okay, how do I take them as a partner in the early stages of a project so that all of those considerations connected to the strategic approach make sense? So this to me is a great best practice, is like really leaning into assessment. So what you said around hiring, I think all of the things that you said make sense, with the exception that I do still help clients with their resumes. So not everything is AI written.
True, true.
Yeah. So a lot of resumes do still have that human touch.
Yep,
However, almost, I would say maybe 90% of resumes are going through an AI based
yep.
applicant tracking system, unless people are applying to these like smaller mom and pop
Fair. Boutique.
companies,
Yeah,
small business, yeah, boutique companies. But even still, a lot of those companies have recruiters, and those recruiters are probably using some tool to manage their
yeah,
administrative processes. So I think when one of the thoughts that I had for you is like, is there a place where assessments live in the hiring process without having this potential like fabricated approach where someone's like, oh, I'm applying for this like senior director role, so I have to skew my responses, right? I think that in my experience with your assessment tool, you can't really do that because you're just talking about, you're answering based on yourself or how you like what you do and how you do things. But what are your thoughts there on like how those assessments help to create stronger teams and stronger team dynamics?
yeah. So before I forget, it probably, I would imagine, one of the biggest values you add to people helping with their resumes is knowing what those dang bots are looking for. So not only are you adding a
True.
human touch, you're also you're educating, like, yeah, I know this reads really weird and it has like keywords stuffed in it, but we have to. Anyway,
Yes, no, it's
sidebar.
so true. It's so true. Someone's like, "Does this sound a little bit like pitchy?" I'm like, you want keywords
Have to
somewhere.
be.
We can have a
Yep.
skills section, or we can have really packed out bullets, or we can have both.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah,
You have to get
totally.
to the ATS somehow.
Yes, that's
But to
true.
answer your question, yeah, some people do try to game it. That's any assessment of any kind. But the percentage, what we've found during research is very, very low. Maybe 2 to 3% of people are trying to game it. And we have validity flags to tell us when that's probably occurring,
Cool.
because
Yeah.
the whole thing is based on stimulus response, and we're doing some UX science, and intentionally doing like this like minor cognitive overload that gets people, um, they can't focus on gaming it and focus on completing it the right way at the same
Mm.
time, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also, you don't know what we're looking for. A software developer for me is a different kind of software developer for someone else is a different kind,
Yeah.
and so like now, if I were looking at your profile and I saw you applying for, you know, an accountant role, I'd be like, okay, probably not going to have that. Like, no,
Not a
no
fit.
offense,
Yeah.
right? That's not a fit.
No,
Uh,
no offense taken. Not a
yeah,
fit.
but that's not doing you a disservice. You probably wouldn't have applied anyway.
Correct. You're 1,000% correct.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, with the team dynamics, you mentioned that, and what popped in my head was my old COO and I. So I was the president of the company. The CEO was kind of long gone. He was, playing poker, and so it's really it was Bill and me running the company. Bill is the COO, and he and I used to butt heads like crazy. He looked at me like this wild card jumping out of the plane with no parachute. I
Oh
looked at him
God.
as this stick in the mud, not willing to try anything new. And we were both wrong. We just had totally different internal drives moving us through the world. We had totally different, um, when we finally got psychometrics, it was almost a literal mirror looking at the charts that it gave us. We were complete opposites. And when we started getting our own self-awareness, but then others' awareness combined with that, we started realizing, okay, we can really lean on each other's strengths, and we can also make sense of the things that we see in the other person that frankly drive us nuts. Like, was he more nostalgic and wanted to do things the way they had been done and proven? Yeah, but we were an operations focused company, so we had to do that. Did
Yeah.
I want change for the sake of change and I just created chaos out of nothing? Yeah, I did. But we also needed to innovate and disrupt. And so we got to hold those things hand in hand and say, all right, here's the lane where Jason gets to go big strategy, look, 5-year horizon down the road. Here's where Bill is execution and excellence on in the operations side and taking care of our clients and all that. And we got to really combine those powers in a unique way. And once you see it and once you're there on the other side, you look back and you're like, it's so simple. Uh,
Hmm.
This wasn't rocket science. This should have been obvious, but it really hardly ever is. And executives and leaders and teams, they fight all the time. They don't get along and they don't know why. And we are able to give those people the common language to help pull them out of that rut and help them see where each other's strengths can shine.
Yeah, it's so true. Like the amount of dysfunction that comes from just a lack of understanding.
Mhm.
And some teams are better than others, in my experience, at navigating different, personalities or ways of working without fighting all the time. And then there are some teams that just fight all the time.
Yeah.
And frankly, both are fine. Some teams, when you think about like the book Radical Candor, I think that's what it's
Oh
called.
yeah.
Some teams really just prefer to maybe have a little bit of a fight, talk really openly, and
Yeah.
hopefully get to a solution. However, those teams still can benefit from having this common language, and they probably would have less arguments because they're thinking about the ways that the other person is thinking. And I I imagine there's a lot of ego involved when it comes to like just generally why teams are not necessarily getting past this person doesn't think the way that I think, this person doesn't think the way that I think, I want to do this, they want to do
Mhm.
that. And kind of even referencing your story, not to say that ego came into play there, but there's an element to which, like, from a human perspective, we all have our own beliefs around what's right and the way we want to do things. I'm the first to say, like, I would much prefer people do the things the way that I want to do them. Like,
Mhm.
who wouldn't, right? At the
Well,
end of the
half the
day,
population, to answer
yeah,
your
that's
question,
true.
by the
Right.
way.
We did. Yeah. Half the population wants things done the way they want things to be done. That's what you mean?
Yeah, well, so one of the big eye-opening things to me, and by the way, ego was absolutely part of my situation. I continually struggle with ego, and thankfully have a challenge network that keeps me grounded. But
It's
uh,
awesome.
so this idea of I want things done my way, I figured everyone in the world thought that way.
Mm,
But according to our science and our studies and validation and everything else, half the population, their preference is to be given clear instruction. Like they would rather have a support role behind the scenes, helping uplift team player type of deal, someone else's vision or ideas. It doesn't mean that they don't want to
mm,
be heard. They still require autonomy, of
right.
course, but they don't want to be making the call. They don't want that pressure. They don't have the ego that comes into play that says, listen to my idea. My idea is the best idea. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so just that revelation alone was a big game changer for me because one of the reasons I struggled in leadership, well, the ego was part of it. Like I would steamroll people, unfortunately, sometimes. But
No,
on the flip
same.
side,
Yeah.
I wouldn't give enough instruction. Like Brene talks about paint done, and I was really bad at that. So I would say, "Hey, here's the vision, go," and people would just be
Mm-hmm.
like, "Go what? What do you
Yeah.
want
Like, where
me
do
to
you want me to
do?"
go?
Yeah, yeah. And so knowing that about people is also really helpful. They want to be given tools and resources and clear direction and instruction. Um, again, not because they lack autonomy or anything. It's just they have a different drive than you and I do of
Mm-hmm.
like wanting to influence all of our surroundings and outcomes and everything else.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm really having a self-reflection moment because I definitely do and have done that in the past where it's like, this is what I'm thinking, go for it. And I'm looked at like I have 7,000 different heads. And it's purely because I am not thinking about how someone is not thinking the way that I think, or is it, doesn't have the same preferences that I have related to work. And that's really interesting that 50% of people want clear direction. And I definitely have struggled with giving clear direction. I probably still do, but I think self awareness solves a lot. So I love
Yeah.
that you were open about like, no, there was definitely ego there because all of that, when you are self-aware, that's kind of half the challenge, is like
Oh,
realizing,
yeah.
oh, there's a different way that I can work with people in order to maximize their potential and give them the best experience possible. Because at the end of the day, I think probably everyone wants to feel successful, whether that's being given clear instruction and they execute the way that they need to, or the way that they want to, or for people like you and me who want to have this blank canvas and be able to be free to figure out what that looks like, to also have that. And
Yeah.
when I think about like some of these leadership principles that come from having this common language, and also the best practices that come from are derived from this, everything kind of comes back to engagement to me. Like,
Mhm.
there are, of course, managers, executives benefit probably the most from something like this, other than the manager level. So let's say manager level and above, but certainly individual contributors benefit from this a lot too, because they more often than not are either looking to be in their role and grow laterally, or they're looking to grow vertically and eventually have teams. And so allowing them the understanding of how they work
Mhm.
can benefit them just as much as it can benefit a manager who's leading that team, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
It does. Yeah, I agree completely. And it helps kind of reframe some of the traditional corporate ladder structures that we have. I think one of the corporate ladder mistakes that we've all seen is in sales. You have somebody who's great at sales, and so therefore we make them a sales leader, and then they bomb, and they're
Yeah.
really bad at it. And
Yeah.
and it's not the fault of that person. For them, the only way to grow was to gun for that job.
Hmm.
And so the companies that really see that and get that go, okay, just because somebody's good at something doesn't mean they're going to be good at leading that thing. And if leadership of that thing is the only path of growth, promotion, etc., then we're going to have failures in our system here, because either we're going to promote the wrong people or we're going to lose them. So we have to start
Yeah.
getting more creative of like, what does a lateral move look like? What does a in the seat promotion, from junior to senior, 2 to 3, and a salary band? Like we have to keep bringing those people on. And one of the pushbacks on that is like, oh, well, it's just too expensive to give somebody an 8% raise, whatever. Well, what's the cost of losing them? It's a
Right.
hell of a lot
Exactly.
more than 8% of their salary.
Yeah.
What's the cost of putting them in the wrong seat to lead a whole team? Like if the
Oof.
production of the team that they're now leading drops even 5 or 10%, I mean you're talking 5x their salary is what that costs you.
Hmm.
So give them the
Hmm.
8% raise. It's a
Right. Right.
no-brainer.
And stop
It's just
complaining.
right. Yeah, people just have to get over that hurdle.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, a lot of companies really can be pretty narrow-minded when it comes to that, and they're not seeing beyond the scope of that, current or momentary
Mhm.
merit process. I mean, at the end of the day, like when people come from the outside, they're making, depending on where they were in their last company, they could be seeing an increase themselves. The cost of hiring is tremendous, not just because you're probably bringing someone in for more than that 8% raise that someone would would see, but also like the productivity cost. Like
Mhm.
how many people are interviewing, how many people are sourcing for that candidate. Now you're talking about hundreds of hours across some
Yeah.
of the most highly paid people in your organization. That's where you want them spending their time. That's where you want them spending your dollars. Like
Yeah.
let's be real and allow them to be as productive as possible. And also, most people don't totally love hiring. As an HR person, I'm not a recruiter. Like
Mhm.
I have worked with some of the best recruiters ever, and that's because they love hiring. Like I love finding great talent. I love
Yeah.
meeting great people during interview processes, but I am not a recruiter, and most hiring managers would probably say the same. So
Yeah.
when you have them spending hundreds of hours, over the course of however long, whatever span of time, doing something that they're not necessarily so energized by, it's really can be very deflating. But of
Yeah.
course, once you find that great person, it's amazing. But yeah, how can you retain someone? How can you engage them while they're in your organization without playing this like defensive game of, oh, we have to save this person, we have to save this person? Like be on the
Mhm.
offense, give them a great livable wage before they're like, I'm going to go find something else, or treat them well, or whatever the engagement driver is,
Yeah.
do the right thing.
I just did some fun head math, because I
Fun.
started
Yeah.
thinking you were talking about all the different additional costs of hiring, or how hiring the wrong person or turnover, whatever else. And one of the other factors is the ramp up time, right? Somebody that you hire and bring on new
Totally.
is not profitable, is not productive in that role for however long. And so I just, in my head, I was like, let's call it 30 days, which it's probably longer than that.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Definitely. Yeah.
30 days out of 365 is 8%. Like just so happens. I mean, that was an arbitrary
Wow.
number,
Yeah.
but give the 8% raise. Like
Yeah.
it's still cheaper than having some new person that costs you so much to bring in and have them making a salary for 30 days without really adding any contribution or value to the organization. It's like giving people really good raises and a livable wage is the most capitalistic thing you could do.
Yeah. Right. Right. You want this. This is a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. No, the best case scenario is that organizations start with paying people the right wage and are not like looking to undercut. Of course, you see a lot of organizations looking at cost cutting measures with things like that. But it's like, A, pay people the right wage when they enter, and
Mhm.
give people appropriate, strong, responsible, whatever the word is, increases when they're eligible and due for an increase. Like, just,
Yeah.
you're going to save money in the long run. That said, I'm curious, what are some of the pitfalls for organizations when it comes to leveraging the assessments? Like, are there pitfalls? Are there ways that they can misuse assessments when they've taken the approach and have gone ahead to collect this information for their teams?
Yeah. So I don't have any clients that I think are guilty of this right now, but I know a lot about some of my competitors out there and the mentality that they have. There is this mentality of certain attributes that we're measuring, they'll look at them and almost flag them and say, "Oh, if you see this, just throw the resume in the trash." And
That's
like,
bad.
I think that's bullshit. And
Yeah.
it shows a lack of willingness to develop as a leader and a
Yeah.
lack of perspective taking and everything else. So I think a pitfall is to look at this data and make it Bible. I think that there's a
Mm,
way to look at it and it is a really powerful leg of the stool. It is not the end all be all. Like I want my
yeah.
clients to look at this product as something they can never live without again, and they can't even imagine hiring if they lost it. But I also want them to use it in a healthy and productive way that doesn't reject people, doesn't disempower, doesn't use language that's destructive. So if you look through all of our documentation, it's all super encouraging. We have every single attribute, low or high or middle. It has superpowers. It's the language you use inside the app itself, and then there's also growth areas. So hey, here's your superpowers, and then in another philosophy of ours is that it's not our weaknesses that sabotage us; it's actually our strengths when they're
Thousand
overused.
percent.
So
Thousand
like you
percent.
can see the guitar in the background. I'm a musician, so I use the analogy of a volume knob, right? If we turn the volume up too high on our strengths, that's when they begin to sabotage. You and I are probably natural leaders. If we crank that up too high, now we're controllers.
Yeah,
Um,
totally, totally.
yeah, the supporters they're great lifting other people up and supporting vision, and they're great people, whatever. They crank that up too high, they're people pleasers, you
Mm,
know,
yeah,
or
definitely.
enablers and the
Right.
achievers. Gotta love the achievers, but they crank it up. They self sabotage. Now they're like self critics.
Mm,
They can't live up to their own unrealistic expectations, and they crumble under that weight. And so it's always our strengths that are causing us to derail because we're just overusing them and not dialing in the right dynamics. That's a
yeah,
little bit of
no,
a tangent, but
no, it makes total sense. It's kind of like the horseshoe theory, you go too far one way, you end up on the other side. So it's
yeah,
like if you are only leaning into your strength. I mean, you should lean into your strengths, of
of
course, but to your
course. Yeah.
point, overusing or using them in such a way that's ineffective, you do
Mhm.
end up, making that strength a weakness or something that then becomes basically the kryptonite to your superpower. Not to reference Superman, but there I go. And one of the things that I thought of as you were sharing, like, these pitfalls and things to really be mindful of, this is the beauty of diversity of thought. Like,
Mhm.
there's no such thing as like the right strength or the wrong weakness, because everyone
Yeah,
comes with different perspectives, different socioeconomic statuses, different educational backgrounds. And those are all great things
yeah,
that allow people to bring different perspectives to an organization. And it's that diversity of perspective, that diversity in general, that I think enables organizations to move forward more quickly. Because
yeah.
if you're only speaking into your own echo chamber, you're never brainstorming, you're never going to hear a different perspective that
Mhm.
potentially pokes holes in your idea or strategy and then makes it stronger. Like, you need feedback partner. You just talked about before, like when we were talking about ego, you talked about a network that you have around you who keep you honest and keep
Yeah.
you thinking about all of the things that you can do even better. So I think that's a real uh, opportunity for organizations to think about how diversity really moves organizations forward.
Yeah, and on the note of diversity, uh, there um, we kind of have something for everyone. Right? There's right now there's some political polarization around the
Yeah.
topic. Now maybe it's
Yeah.
just the topic of DEI programs. Let's just assume that that's what the debate is about. Well, either side of the aisle, whether you think that we need intentional programs to give intentional advantages to people who have been disadvantaged, or you believe that all these programs are nonsense. We just need to hire the person who's the best fit for the role. We've got something for both. Uh, our validity studies have shown zero correlations in the attributes we're measuring that are predictive of success in a role. In other words, the right person in the right seat.
Hmm.
There are no correlations between sex, age, ethnicity. So a white man in his 50s, a black woman in her 20s are just as likely to have these internal drivers at the same uh, scoring as each other, no matter what. And
Hmm.
so if you're looking for the best fit and or you're looking to intentionally diversify and have
Yeah.
some sort of objective data that doesn't bring bias into the equation, yeah, we're like ideal.
I love that. That's such a wonderful way to bring it back around too, because at the end of the day, like, companies have to really think about what's going to make them the most successful. Bringing the formula has always been right person, right place, right time. There
Mhm.
has never, I don't know any company that has ever said, I want to bring in the wrong person for the job.
Yeah,
Like, that doesn't make any sense.
right.
So, it's like, who is the right person for the job? The person who's earned and deserving of whatever role is open or whatever promotion is open, and regardless of their background, like, it's the things that make them right for that role that should determine what, their eligibility for that role. And it does go, to me, it does go both ways. I agree with you. It's like, okay, there's we know that the best person, best, right place, right person, right time, like, that's the hiring strategy. So let's find the right person regardless of their background. And also, their background can also be one of the things that enables them to be the right person for the right
Yeah.
position at that right time. So, I think all of what we've just talked about really over the last 30 minutes is that multiple things can be true at once. You can have someone who's strategic, someone who's analytical, someone who's really focused, whatever, someone who's a natural born leader, someone who's supportive. They all can be successful. It's not that someone who is a natural born leader is always going to be the most successful, or someone who's a natural, supporter is always going to be successful. Like, there's success in all of those measurements. It's just a matter of where are they most successful.
Yeah.
That's my perspective, at
I
least.
love
But
it.
I thank you. I really appreciated having you on the podcast and talking us through all of the ways in which we can have data support our decisions and drive our organizations forward. So with that, if the listeners want to assess themselves or encourage their organizations to bring on your assessment and Aptive Index in general, where should they go to learn more?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my ADHD won't let me move past the fact that I just realized that when I joined this call, the microphone was set to my AirPods instead of this fancy microphone that's right in front of me. So I apologize for the audio quality
No,
not
it
being what
sounds
it
good.
should
It
have
sounds
been.
good. Oh, okay, fair, 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 fair.
Yeah.
That's so
It
funny.
should have been, it should have
The
had like a
woes of
radio voice. Yeah. It should
podcasting.
have been like, hello and welcome to Movie Phone. But that's a joke that anybody under 30 is not
I
going to
was
know.
gonna say,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so go to aptiveindex.com, and that's a made up word, APTIVE, aptiveindex.com. There's a try it yourself. All you got to do is put your email address in. It'll get you a link. You can try it. It'll send you a profile readout. Uh, I think that the profile readouts are really fantastic. They're encouraging, empowering language. They're not as nuanced, obviously, as if we actually walked through what those attributes really mean, because it's just a one pager. But it's still, I think, super helpful and fun. It's disc on steroids, and especially if we get into the attributes that, yeah, we can dive in. But yeah, if you're interested in it, go take it for yourself. If you're an organization that wants to explore how objective data might impact or improve your hiring, yeah, give me a shout. LinkedIn /whatever/JasonPCarroll.com. Easy to find there too.
Amazing. I'll make sure all of that is linked, and I'm eager to hear, hopefully, from the listeners who do take the assessment, what they've learned. So everyone reach out and hopefully take that assessment and learn more about yourselves, and encourage your organizations to learn more about everybody and make good decisions all the while. Jason, thank you so much for sharing your insights and for joining the podcast this week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Hey, just before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this show so that you are the first to hear when an episode drops each week. And maybe leave a 5-star review and a comment about how much you loved this episode. Plus, if you have someone in mind who would really enjoy this episode, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.